Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the tension, even if no one said a word? That's the collective consciousness at work. Just like individuals, nervous systems, groups, communities, and even whole societies share a kind of emotional climate. Today, we're diving into collective consciousness and what that means for you and what you can do about it, how to protect yourself, and how to benefit the world around you. My name's Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. This is the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. Today we're diving into collective consciousness. And this is a fun topic that we've sort of dabbled in here and there in our episodes, but not really addressed in any way, shape, or form. But it's a very real thing that I think it's important for everyone on this path to realize what it is and how it impacts you, and how you impact it. Wouldn't you say, Justin?
Yeah, I would. It's the invisible exchange.
It's a good way to phrase it.
Well, it really is, right? Because we're so wrapped up in our own thing all the time, we don't realize that the air will get heavier or lighter or warmer or colder sometimes. It has nothing to do with atmospheric pressure or temperatures because of the presence of some people within it, right?
Yeah.
Just as an example, like you said, sometimes you step into a space and you feel instantly at peace or at ease or safe, secure, because there's just this shared current of kindness and openness or whatever. Other times your chest tightens and your instincts start to whisper that you better start looking for the exit and start planning your escape.
And usually we don't know it. Usually it's not necessarily that blunt. Usually it's just you start getting in your head. You start feeling really not at ease.
Right.
And it's like just you feel off. And 9 out of 10, I know for me, when I've been in those situations, I always thought it's me. I'm like, crap, I'm having an episode. I am feeling really awkward right now. When in fact you're just surrounded by a bunch of people who are going through it and you're picking up on their emotions. They talk about empaths, right? Empath is a big topic we talk about. We hear about it everywhere. Well, what creates empaths? We have mirror neurons in our brain that are receptive to other people and the energy they're putting off, the body postures they have. It's what allows us to get a feel of things. And often growing up in trauma, you cultivate more mirror neurons than in a safe home, so you're much more receptive to the energies around you.
Yeah, because the truth is we're always sharing energy with others, whether we know it or not. Even little things, every glance or every word or every silence carries a vibration energetically.
Yeah.
And some of those heal, they uplift, they inspire, but some of them drain, just suck the marrow out of your bones.
It's so true, though. I mean, it's contagious, right? Mm-hmm. And you can be someone who's very resilient to, for me, I was always positive. I worked for a big corporation, and it was hell. But I made the most of that job for years. But after year 4, year 5, man, the negativity that was all around me slowly seeped into me and just took hold. And I was starting to get as pessimistic as everyone else around me. It was one of the worst parts of that job, was just this overwhelming depression I felt. And I know now that it came from not just me, but the collective climate. And, we talk about, right now we're talking about these small tribes in our life. We all have them, workplaces, home life. Mm-hmm. But there's even a greater expansion when it comes to the collective. One thing that I've found really fascinating is, exhaustion. You will see, hey, I'm getting a full night's sleep. Why am I tired? And you go into the workplace, you go into different environments, and everyone is feeling it. Mm-hmm. And there's no particular cause, but it is this collective energy that is all around us.
Yeah. And of course, in our way, the way of Ashla, this is not some kind of mystical concept. It's not vague. It's actually very natural. Yeah. It is life force energy, the very current of light that flows through all living things and connects all living things and surrounds all living things and all non-living things, everything. So, of course, we believe that, so we also believe and teach that how we share that energy matters. Right? It's important for us to be very mindful of that, because going back to our show about the 4 agreements, we try to be impeccable with our entire being, not just with our words. So, and how you share that energy matters. and is just as important as how you protect your own, right?
Well, it's like that's one of the reasons it's so important. Like I love the phrase. It's like it's okay to feel anger. Anger is a valid emotion, but what would you do with that anger is your responsibility. And I know people who just get so angry at little things and just it affects everyone. Everyone when they get into those modes. People start walking on eggshells. People start shrinking themselves down. Or the latter, you're scared out of your mind, you're overwhelmed, and that anxiety's just leaking through, and you're trying to, yeah, I'm fine, it's okay. And everyone starts to pick up on that anxiety, and all of this, it's contagious. I love it, the invisible exchange, right?
Right. Well, and we call ourselves vessels sometimes to kind of illustrate how things pour in and pour out of us, right? And to your point, if you keep pouring out from your vessel without pouring back in, you're going to run dry, and then you're going to hit these bottoms, whether that's fight or flight or, anger or meekness or whatever. So, and the art in that is learning to give without losing too much, to pour as much in as we're pouring out, but also to learn how to protect ourselves without closing ourselves off completely.
Yeah.
Because then we can't fill our vessel anymore, and things just spill over. So
it's so true. I think back to one of the first trainings we had in person, how you taught me about the white light shield and how to call it forth and help protect your energy, how to sort of create this energetic separation from you and the things going on outside of you. And that was something I practiced so many times because it's like I'd get in the thick of it. I was going through my own trauma I was working through. I was surrounded by a whole bunch of people going through their own crap. And it's like I don't have the capacity to deal with other people's crap. I need to find a way to protect myself in those moments where it's like I need a breather.
Yeah. So this energy we share, what is collective consciousness?
So collective consciousness is like the nervous system in a way that each one of us is interconnected within this system of neurons going off in all these directions, but at the core, we're all attached to it. We're all a part of this system. And you feel it everywhere. When big things happen in the world, when emotions run high, everyone starts to pick up on this energy, and it grows and it grows and it grows amongst people, amongst the intensity, and it is just this shared experience. This is a difficult one to really put into words. It's a shared consciousness. Yes, we all have our own perspectives and our own views we see the world, but at the core, at the base, the umbilical cord to this baby that is us, is the connection to all things, which is something we talk heavily about.
Yeah, and paradoxes. You're struggling with it because it's a paradox in a way. We are all connected, all things, but we also have sovereignty.
Yes.
We also have free will, right? As we've talked about before in other episodes. Think of it this way: if the universe is a body, we are simply small parts of that body. If the universe is an ocean, we're just drops of it, but we're still the ocean. Right? We're no less the ocean because we're drops. We're no less the universe because we may be just a cell in a never-ending body, right? So that connects and receives signals from and communicates with other parts of the body or other parts of the ocean. So from this spiritual perspective, this mirrors what we're saying today mirrors what many traditions have taught forever, right? Forever, from the beginning, that we exist in this shared field of energy. We call it the force, or we call it life force sometimes, depending on what the application is. But, this is just this collective consciousness, just like think of it like waves of consciousness that touch and shape each of us in specific ways. So, and some will call it collective consciousness, others call it the web of life.
Yeah. Again,
or this tapestry. You've heard me say that before. These are just different ways to kind of visualize
illustrate
what
it.
We're talking about. Yeah. So, again, when you're entering a space, you're not just carrying your own stuff. Especially if you're an empath, you're really sensitive to it. You're contributing to that shared field. And the closer we are, packed in sometimes, it really, really gets going, doesn't it? But even outside of a room, inside of a city, inside of a country, inside of a planet, we still are connected and we can still feel this stuff from each other. Think about when there's wars and stuff going on, there's a lot of carnage happening. we seem to kind of pick up on that a little bit, even if we're nowhere near and we're not watching the news. You just kind of feel sometimes like kind of on edge, or it's kind of a funny trope for your Star Wars fans. Oh my God, I feel a disturbance in the Force. Well, there's something happening around them, but they're picking up on this collective consciousness, they're picking up on this interconnected web. So, it's important to understand that for energy, there is no time and space. It is instantaneous and literally infinite. So, but we tend to feel it when we're closer together with other life forms, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's so many ways it does show up. I mean, again, we've talked about workplaces and families, communities, but I think one of the big ones is I don't think many people realize what is the phrase I'm looking for here? How much social media and algorithms really can impact how we perceive the world and how we interact with it. Mm-hmm. That was a big thing. I watched this documentary on Netflix about how, like, these micro shifts in algorithms change people's opinions. Like, it is a subtle form. I'm going to use the term mind control, but it's not mind control. It is just reality shifting bit by bit. And you have social media amplifying all these major issues within politics, within different countries, within all these different subsets. And what drives them to give us content isn't necessarily just interest, it's engagement. It's how emotionally involved do we get with content. I remember this.
They are the worst gaslighters on the planet, aren't they?
Yeah, because they're going to feed into it. They're going to realize you saw something that really was like, that's not okay, and then it's going to show you more of it. There's this famous...
And they will gaslight the hell out of you until you react, yeah.
Yeah, there's this famous phrase in journaling, in journaling. And it's, if it bleeds, it reads.
Yeah.
If we were to go to the movie and watch a movie about a guy who worked hard every day and went home, paid his bills, and ate ramen, we wouldn't go watch that movie.
Probably not.
No. And in turn, we're not going to watch news about pandas having fun in Asia. We're going to be watching carnage because that's what's going to pique our interest. That's what's going to spike our levels. And it's this collective energy that gets affected by this, because the more chaos is being shown to us, the more we feel chaos, the more we are drawn to chaos. And it's just this endless cycle. And this is just one area where this happens. But
so we have a couple of axioms that speak to this segment of the show. To connect with life force energy is to allow death no dominion. When truly realized, one ends without ending. And of course, we're not talking about death here. Well, you were talking about carnage a second ago, so maybe. But what this axiom speaks to is that eternal, unbroken connection that all living things are connected through the universe, or the force, as we call it, or God. It would apply to any of the systems of belief that you may have, because there has to be this admin. This has to be this energy that connects us fully. It could be spirit. You call it whatever you want, but it's there. The other one is approach understanding with light, and darkness will never gain purchase. And I picked this one, and I'll let you speak to this, but I picked this one because this actually reminds us that when we approach this connection, this collective connection with others, right? If we come at it with clarity and truth, really things that we teach a lot here, we have the ability to strengthen the whole, and we go a long way to prevent fear and negativity from taking hold in these shared fields.
The more mindful we can be, the more we can watch ourselves and the things outside of us and see how much is our energy our own, or how much is our energy resonating at a different frequency to match that what's outside of ourselves. Awareness. That's the number one practice right there.
Yep. Practice. Awareness gives you clarity. And here's the last one that I wanted to share. Live in accordance with the nature of things. In dwelling, live close to the land. In meditation, go deep into the heart. In dealing with others, always stand by your word. This one's important because as we are connected, everything we do reverberates through the whole. Yeah. So if we are aligning ourselves, and we did a show about that axiom specifically, and basically what we were saying is the more aligned you are with the natural flow of energy, right, that binds the universe together, it greatly impacts us, others, literally everything in the world, and we get to choose how we impact that. We get to choose how we what we bring to the table, right?
Well, it's so vital because that which you resist only makes things worse.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on in the world is so chaotic at all times. I don't care about now or 20 years ago. And we have to be able to let things happen around us and be able to move with them. You know, one of the things I talked to some of the people I care about that are really into politics is like, look, I respect why you're engaged, involved, and wanting to know all these things, but be careful how much energy and time you're investing in this, because in the end, there's not a lot you can do about it. It's good to know what's going on. It's good to be aware. But at what point are you going to be able to draw boundaries with yourself and being engaged and involved in these kind of things without it impacting you to a level where you're cutting people out of your life or you're constantly going into tirades or trying to defend a point? It's like you gotta move with what's going on in the world, because there's only so much you can do in any particular area. And yeah, if you're passionate about something, go pursue speaking out about it. Mm-hmm. But if you got to be all in, if you're going to be putting that kind of time and dedication, because a lot of people will spend 40, 60 hours a week diving into this chaos going on around us without getting anything from it. They just cultivate more anxiety, more fear, or more anger.
Right. Yeah,
know what true. You have control over.
That's half the battle. That is half the battle.
I know. I got into conspiracies years ago, and man, that was a rabbit hole that took me to such a dark place. And then finally, it's like, if it's real, it's real. But there's nothing I can do about any of this stuff. I can have the awareness so I can plan ahead and sort of have like a, this is what I'll do if things go sideways plan. But it's like, it's not worth me spending all my time reading news article, trying to cross-reference things and see what's true, what's not. And yeah.
Well, I mean, it helps us protect that energy we're talking about, our part of it. Because if we can't control it, then there's no sense in pouring ourselves into something that's not going to affect anything in that way. Right. You know, we're talking about the energy we pour in does affect the whole on some level, but it's not going to affect you pouring that much energy into something that you can't actually change. You know, it's not going to affect on the scale where it's even going to budge it, right?
Right. Like, we might be able to have a ripple effect a little bit in our communities, in our close-knit groups, but beyond that, the further out you go, the more those ripples are going to just dissipate, and it's just going to be water splashing on a rock in the...
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You talk about conspiracy theories, I don't have an opinion on whether those are good or bad. I think they go both ways, but those definitely can help spread fear depending on who is pulling the strings on it, who's feeding the information out there. You go to YouTube, and it's easy to find a lot of people who sound really, really smart, and they're really convincing, right? And what they're pouring out there may not be truth. It may be disinformation or something, and that can spread like wildfire because we are so tight, so close together energetically, and sometimes, in close proximity of each other. And those people that are closest to you are the ones that are going to be affected the most, of course. Yeah. Your ripples will reach the edge of the universe, but if there are people out there, they're probably not going to notice, right?
Right.
But the people within your circles, your inner circles, and your families, and your workplaces, whatever, if you have some influence there, they're definitely going to be the ones that are going to be impacted the most by how you're showing up with your energy and with your ideals and things like that. So again, it goes back to being very, very, very picky about how we show up.
Yeah,
because it matters. Because it matters.
Well, one of the dangerous things is, as you brought up, sort of like people online who can sound smart. I mean, it is proven that people are more drawn to things that entice their emotions and believing that than just facts and action.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's what politics has become. Let's try to get as much of an emotional rise as we can to get the most engagement towards what we're trying to do. Right. And I mean, that's how we're wired as people. We are meant to be emotional beings, and with us being so dysregulated as a whole, it's very easy to capture that emotion and then add fuel to that fire, and just like we were talking about with social media, it's and we are in this digital age, right? I mean, we're coming a lot. Well, we're not coming live, but we're coming to you folks, and we're meeting up together on platforms that allow us to have that reach
literally to the edges of the planet. So, and it amplifies this phenomenon we're talking about, how we show up or how it shows up in our daily life. And it used to be just the news, right? Breaking news, events that trigger these widespread stress responses, basically. Now it's not just the news, you can barely get away from it because it's all over your phones, it's all over your feeds, it's all over everything. You know, if you're a grandma out there in Idaho who just has a Facebook just to keep up with her grandkids, now she's looking at it and now she's getting freaked out, and now she's freaking out her church group, and they're freaking out whatever, right? This goes and goes and goes, and it doesn't stop. So, you know, we have an axiom that we approach understanding with light, and darkness will never gain purchase. If we meet these surges, good or bad, with awareness, right? We'll talk about awareness a lot, and with compassion and kind of this aligned steadiness, just holding the line, right, between truth and disinformation, or truth and untruth. This allowing ourselves to be ruled by fear and anxiety and all these different things. If we meet these with clarity, we become anchors. And that's what we try to be. Anchors instead of amplifiers of chaos. We try to give people an anchor to hold on to during those storms, right? Yeah. And we're trying to teach other people how to be anchors in the storm too sometimes, so that others can grab on and hang on while the storm passes, because there's no shortage of chaos in this world, as you said earlier.
Yeah. Well, and I think, honestly, that's the root of the whole philosophy. Everything we're trying to teach with New Ashla is to create more anchors in the world, more people who are wanting to be the change they want to see, instead of the ones freaking out about the change they don't want to see.
Right. Yeah. Right. You know, that lighthouse on the shore. There's lots of analogies we could use. But yeah, we're trying to be that thing that holds it down long enough for the storm to pass. Because it will. It will. And to teach others through our works. You know, we do it lots of different ways, but we put out teachings. We do these videos, these podcasts, our shorts and reels and all that stuff. Those are all little pieces. All of it. Right. But how we show up ultimately is the best way, because people can see it. We provide that example. We walk the talk, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And, you know, if you're not careful about this collective energy, so many people are tethered and hardwired right into it. And they go with the ups and the downs. And, I mean, the health implications that can come from this can be catastrophic, from increased anxiety, insomnia, irritability, hopelessness. Oh, my God, hopelessness. You're seeing it everywhere. It's calmed down a bit over the last couple months, but, man, that is where we started this year at, was hopelessness.
We did. And much of that still carries on, whether the things we're seeing can be believed or not, or the things we're hearing, because everybody has an agenda.
Yep.
Right? And there is an axiom that specifically, literally talks about what you're saying right now. And it really only has a use in this topic. If the ills of the world consume you, eventually they will destroy you, right?
Yep.
You cannot carry the weight of every freaking crisis, every conflict, every injustice, if you don't also find a way to restore yourself. The burden becomes too great for one person alone. Even for a group of people, it becomes too much.
One thing that's vital about what you're saying is, one thing we preach on this podcast, balance. If all you're consuming is what is wrong, that is where you will head, and that is where your head will be. If you can't balance without seeing the good as well going on, then you will become bitter. You will become cynical.
Yeah, for folks, and we know people. You and I know people. We've talked about this privately before, off air. People who get caught up in these theories, right? Yep. And they go deep into the rabbit hole. They lose a part of themselves. People who find themselves becoming extreme preppers, I guess is the best way that I can.
Yeah.
You know, they get lost. Because then all they do is they don't see what's actually happening and how the pendulum swings. This is how balance is, right? Yeah. So to live in that constant resonance with the world's pain, this collective pain, in a lot of ways you surrender your own light. and you fall from truth in a lot of ways. And when you pour out too much, right? When you pour out your light, you have nothing left to give if you're not, again, replenishing it. And when it comes to the ills of the world, there are plenty of them, and they will never go away completely. So but we get caught up in that because we want to save the world. We want to love. We want to care for. And because we are connected, it's easy, once we resonate with a particular thing, then we become attached to it, and then we don't let it go, right?
Preach. My God.
Listen, I don't want people to think that I'm calling people ignorant for this. It is part of what we are and who we are. And this is not a call for people to ignore the ills of the world, but perhaps your energy and your kindness are better served closer to home. And as we do this, it spreads out, right?
Yeah.
We become these examples for people to do it in another place or another where our ripples may not quite reach too much. So, but at the end of the day, like all things, we're going to come back to balance here. I'm not saying to ignore everything or detach from everything, but just think of this as a reminder that without your boundaries, without replenishing your vessel as you pour, right, your compassion becomes corrosion within the inside. It does. Because the world suffers for real. There is suffering out there, and it's real. Some of us don't have to go very far to see it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, your need for restoration is real. We talked about this in the last episode. Burnout, right? This goes right back into burnout. If you're not careful, you're going to burn out, and you won't. And then others have to come to your aid instead of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
no, it's so on point with that.
So I just want people to understand, you can acknowledge the injustices, the crises, the pain and suffering people are going to, without allowing it to hollow you out and burn yourself to the ground, where it's not a good place to be, right?
No. And one thing I got to point out, you kind of touched on this a bit, is like, we're talking about this eternal optimism to a degree, but it also does not mean that we don't see that things are bad. I mean, It's like, I personally believe things are going to get a hell of a lot worse before they start getting a hell of a lot better.
They tend to, don't they?
Yeah, and you know what? That is the ebb and flow that we must go with. You look at societies, and it is a pattern, and we are like 80% before really things hit the fan. And that can be a controversial topic, but it's like, I know that's where we're at. But that's not to say either that I'm going to be looking at that collapse and be worrying about it and prepping for it and planning for it. Instead, I'm trying, like we are building a foundation so that we can help people be lights in that storm if it comes.
And helping people build a community so that everyone can carry some of the weight, right?
Yes.
We can't carry it all by ourselves. As much as we want to. I get it. Every time I see something, that is where someone's suffering or someone's being treated unjustly, I get it. That fire stokes right in my belly, and I want to go right back. But if I did that every time I seen something, I'd burn out. There'd be nothing left of me. Yeah. But thank you for letting me go on that little tangent, because it's very important. Because right now, for many people, Michael, especially the younger generations who may only be seeing this level of chaos for the first time, when it's a pendulum again. The world goes to peace, it goes to chaos. It goes to peace, it goes to chaos. And if you don't have any idea that it does that, or you haven't seen it like that before,
enough context,
you might think, the context, you might think that this is the end of the world. Well, according to lots of people, the world should have ended many, many times over. And it hasn't. But that doesn't mean that, we stop being prepared for some things, too. It's just about balance.
Yeah, the more aware we are of what we're taking in, where we're at in life, and just being able to balance, again, just balance the good and the bad. Don't get overly attached or drawn into any one thing, because it will consume you.
It will consume you. It will. I've watched so many people close to me in my life be consumed by lots of this stuff. And it's heartbreaking sometimes because some of them really get lost.
Yeah. So what are some ways we can start contributing in beneficial ways to the collective?
How do we contribute in beneficial ways?
Yes. I mean, we're already talking about being the light we want to see.
Right. Well, you start off by reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
And learn to be impeccable. No. We'll say awareness and clarity is really the most powerful things you can do to show up. It's the way you show up. Because none of this is something that just happens to us. We are a part of it whether we want to be or not, right?
Yeah.
It's just that is existence within this creation. I won't
100%.
speculate if there are other creations next to ours. I can only speak to this creation, and I can barely speak to it, right?
Right.
It's pretty vast. So I would just say that, we start with ourselves, like we always say. How are we showing up emotionally? Doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. But when you're angry or when you're sad or when you should be reacting to those signals in a way that you can show up in a healthy way, right?
Yeah.
Not try to get caught up. And I'll point out that most of us, probably all of us, because we're human beings, sometimes we get caught up in stuff. If people are angry around us, especially if we have some little connection to what they're angry about. This goes back to like something that deals with children, maybe. Most of us, I would say almost all of us, if we see a child getting hurt, we hear about children getting hurt, we kind of band together and we don't care what kind of damage we cause, right?
Right.
So and that goes back to champion a cause, the axiom about champion a cause, make sure you show. Look, all of this stuff at the end of the day is how you show up. Being impeccable with your word, being impeccable with your thoughts, being impeccable with your energy. Because if you're out there spreading misinformation, or if you're out there spreading lies and malicious ideals about people, groups, whatever, you're not really showing up in a way that's useful for the rest of us or that's good for the rest of us.
Yeah, just creating more of that divide.
Right. And you're probably doing it on purpose maybe if you're doing that. But you can do it accidentally too. My mom, old Grandma Jenny here, she sees things on Facebook all the time and she's like, she'll say something and it sounds crazy to me and I'll be like, did you hear that on Facebook? Or did you read that on Facebook? She's accidentally trying to tell me some really crazy thing, and I'm just like, did you fact check that?
Yeah.
Well, I went to Google and I found like all these other ones. I was like, yeah, well, you got to go down like to reputable source maybe, or 2 or 3 different sources, because what you're saying probably isn't true. But if she shares it and they share it and her 10 friends share it.
Just like we were talking about ripples.
Yeah.
Well, and one important thing with mom mentality I just got to bring up. There's this book by Robert Greene called Laws of Human Nature. It is one of the best reads I ever had. It's thick and it's dense, so it's like you got to read a chapter at a time and digest it. But he has a whole chapter about mob mentality and the psychology of it. And all these real-world examples of people who were very individualistic, getting to be a part of these groups. And the issue is when you get into a collective space and you start championing an extreme cause with people, you start to lose individuality. Psychologically, you will start to separate yourself emotionally away from yourself because if you're not a part of the group, you're going to be an issue. And this is all unconscious. Like, we can consciously think, I'm going to join this, but I'm going to stay to myself and I'm going to do what's right. But the more you stick with a mob, the more you're going to lose yourself and your ideals and your virtues to what the group wants to do. It's human nature.
Right. So, getting back to your question, which I totally dodged and took the long way around, wouldn't you say that the first step, or at least one of the first steps, would be that self-regulation?
Yeah.
Starting with that.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed when I worked in my job, that one where I was able to stay positive for 4 years, those days where I was happy, nothing was going to bring me down, it was contagious. I'm smiling every day. I smile at whoever I see. They smile back. And you can tell it just made their day a little bit better. Yeah. And mind you, that was the toxic positivity extremes. Be aware of where you're at and the realistic how bad that environment is. But emotions are contagious. Like we were talking with anger and how that can catch on, so can emotions like happiness and joy, can excitement. So can drive and teamwork. That's one thing that I always joke that my job actually is the moral support, because when people are having rough days, I help lift them up. I help create communication with the team and help projects sort of become co-worked on. And that's really my strength. But that is something we can all contribute, is that we can, like you said, regulate ourselves. Bring ourselves away from the chaos back into ourselves and into the flow. We can then show up in a much different place and help other people pull out of that chaos.
Yeah. You've talked about this many times, different episodes, cutting media out of your diet or your consumption every once in a while, right? Because like every story you absorb, everything you hear, everything you see, and everything that reaches and touches you emotionally, even just a little bit, becomes part of your nervous system's reality, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're continually drinking in the chaos of the world without a break, it will consume you from the inside out, like we said earlier.
It'll die you.
I just want to say this one thing about that axiom, about the ills of the world consuming you. This isn't permission to turn away from suffering for those of you who walk this path with us. But it is a call to meet it with balance and discernment, and to try and create that kind of strength that comes from protecting yourself, and then you'll protect others in that way. But this media diet, that's a really important one. And you said you do it like every other month or every
it's whenever I start getting bad with it, which realistically turns out to be probably every other month. Yeah, I'll just turn off I'll turn off whatever app it is that I'm spending too much time in, or it's getting me too involved. You know, I got a podcast I listen to on politics, and I love the content because it's very neutral and non-biased. But it's like I caught myself listening to it a lot, and it's like, all right, I'm starting to get into this rabbit hole. Time to unplug for a little bit, bring myself back to baseline. So it'll probably be a month till I listen to it again. It's good content, but I don't want to overindulge in it because it starts to taint my perspective.
And of course, we have communities that practice healing collectively, right?
Yeah.
And you and I attended a kind of a little community event with the Saluna group. Yeah. And you'll see those on, and that was kind of a smaller scale, but you see them large scale. I mean, at every church, every mosque, every Buddhist temple, every place of worship practices this type of community type healing, doesn't it? Through prayer and meditation and things like that.
Yeah.
Every therapy group, right? Doesn't matter for the topic. Could be AA or NA, or just dudes hanging out and sharing, right?
Yeah.
But those are powerful, and they do shift how we show up, not just personally, but as groups. And then again, that can spread too.
Yeah. Well, I think an important part with especially sharing, like, man, we have so much. Again, I preach to it. I've written so many papers in college about how mental health is the number one issue in the world today. And why? Because when we start shoving down these things, we're not sharing what's going on in our lives, and we have all this unprocessed personal trauma, it starts to leak out in other ways. And when we have these emotionally engaging events happen around us, we are so drawn into it because those inner wounds start to kick on, whether it's going to help us feel justified for what we went through in the past, or we don't want to see someone go through the same hurt, and we don't allow ourselves to step back and not be emotionally attached to the things we follow. It's so easy to get drawn into the collective stress, the collective drama, and be just completely controlled by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
So what are some ways we can start regulating our nervous systems around the collective? Start getting more people involved, since a lot of people aren't going to jump into let's regulate our nervous systems together. So you're talking about self-regulation first.
Let's have a nervous, or what do you call it?
Collective nervous system?
Nervous system regulation party. I've never been to one of those, but really I have. I mean, again, it's building that tribe. And we've talked about how important community is. And it is important to build a family around you, a collective around you that shares in similar goals and similar, just that are similar to you in lots of different ways. Don't ever let it get to the point where you're in an echo chamber, like I've talked about before, because those aren't healthy either. But you gotta surround yourself with people that mirror what you're trying to accomplish, that also want to grow like, as you are, and also want to serve as you do. So, and that could be 3 people, that could be 100, it could be 1,000.
Yeah, well, and co-regulation is so powerful. I mean, Allison and I, every day when we get home from work, we go and we cuddle for 10 minutes. We do 4 or 5 deep breaths in and out, just in unison together. Like, we do all these different things to help bring ourselves back to baseline, using each other to help co-regulate.
Right.
And, I mean, one of the things sort of counterintuitive to what we're talking about here is having people who are different than us to help build resilience around moments where we're dysregulated. One workshop I'm planning on releasing by the end of the year or beginning of next year is a hard conversations workshop where a whole bunch of people get together and we can pick topics that we can have safe zones around, but we can talk about controversial things and work on not letting our emotions take the wheel and start learning to regulate in hard conversations.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because if we can do that, we can create much bigger communities of diverse thinkers and believers, because it's when we have 2 opposing views can we create the best wisdom around anything, because it's 2 perspectives seeing completely different things.
Well, if anything, it gives people a place to at least get that off their chest in a way where they're not going to get assaulted.
Ain't that the truth, though? I mean, can you imagine?
Well, I know you're going to ask the folks out there a question, and I can't imagine. What was that question? What was that question that you're going to ask them?
I mean, what would it feel like to live in a society where we're regulated, where it's calm and safe? Compassion is the default for people, which I honestly think it is. We're just so covered in bruises and wrappings that we don't realize everyone wants the same thing for the most part.
Yeah.
There's a couple narcissists out there, don't get me wrong, but it's much fewer than we say there is.
Yeah, I think we're really confused on what that is. It's one of those words that got thrown around too much, and now we don't know who's what, right?
Yep.
But I can imagine it. And, imagine walking into any kind of space. It could be your work. It could be your neighborhood. It could be a crowded city street. Right? It could be your home. It could be anywhere. And feeling that undercurrent of calm. I can imagine that. Yeah. It'd be awesome. And people aren't rushing past one another without, being mindful of what they're doing.
Yep, respectful.
And without stress, there's just ungodly stress in their eyes, there's tension, Yep. Moving around with purpose, but also aware of what they're doing to other people. They're not banging into them. They're not, causing these disruptive ripples.
Yep. You can go into work on a bad day and not be judged for it. It's like, hey, let's give you an easier load today. Let's try to meet you where you're at.
Well, and where safety is the default. I don't know if safety is the right word here, but that's the one I can think of. Where safety is the default. Not just talking physical safety, but where these spaces exist where we can be authentic emotionally, right? And that we can share our truth without fear of being ridiculed or heard, without judgment. So where compassion is the norm, I can imagine that, not the exception. Sometimes it feels like it's the exception, almost like it's a superpower, right? Where we learn to listen, to understand, not to just reply or respond in defense of something. So I can imagine a place where we see the humanity in each other before the differences, because there are differences, but we see the humanity, our shared things, before we see the differences, where people are better regulated and more aware of how they're showing up in the world. I can imagine that. I really can. So that contributes to a more steady consciousness that we all share. That kind of collective nervous system, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine this stuff where we're not poisoned by fear, where we're not divided because disagreement escalated into that division. So, again, the axiom of light: live in accordance with the nature of things. In dwelling, live close to the land. In meditation, go deep into the heart. In dealing with others, always stand by your word. In this vision of a regulated, copacetic collective consciousness, these principles would be natural things that lived daily, right? nature's law. We all kind of fall into this stuff already if we're not allowing ourselves to get too far away. But we find balance. This is what we teach. We find balance by returning to the rhythms of the natural world, the universe. We root ourselves in places and practices that not only we're giving and serving, but we're also being nourished as well, right?
Yeah.
And we listen to the inward stillness and peace of our heart. This helps us find balance. This helps us show up better in a way that contributes positively to the collective consciousness, and kind of help. If we all did this, it would kind of make this kind of imagination, this imagined reality come true. You know, can't you imagine a place where you could like breathe freely and just be yourself, and where the culture that you're in is one of healing, and
right?
Not
just support and growth,
and not like the not the rare exception where someone's healed, but everyone kind of shares in that healing. So to answer your question, yes, I can imagine it. Just don't know if I'll live to see it.
I know, because like I said, I'm expecting the pendulum to go a little more this way, but every time we go into disharmony, we find a greater harmony. We can say the world is bigoted and cold today, but if you look at it compared to the last time major societies were around, I mean, it's constantly getting closer and closer to unity, equality, love, and just a collective fight for everyone's good. And it might take a few more swings of the pendulum, but I do think that's the Eden at the end of the Bible. I think that is where we're heading. It's just, will it be in our lifetime? That's the kicker. Do you have anything else you want to share before I jump into the affirmative prayer?
Nope, I'm good. Great topic today.
Well, again, it's one we've sort of brought up here and there, but never elaborated on, and I think it's important for people to be aware of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, for our affirmative prayer today, let us close our eyes. In this moment, I remember that I am not separate. I am a thread in the great tapestry of life. The peace I choose within myself ripples outward, touching every heart I meet. I affirm that my breath is not just my own. It is part of the rhythm that unites us all. I release fear, tension, and reactivity. And I welcome safety, compassion, and trust into my body. As I rest in my own calm center, I offer an anchor for others. I see the collective nervous system softening, slowing, and returning to harmony. Together we breathe in peace. Together we breathe out love. And so it is.
And so it is.
For our affirmations today, my calm is a gift I give to the world. I choose to be steady, choose to be a steady and safe presence for myself and others. Every breath I take brings peace to the collective. I release fear and invite compassion into the shared space we all inhabit. As I regulate my own energy, I help heal the world. Now, for our exercise today, I want to teach you what Justin taught me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, about building a shield of light to protect your energy. Close your eyes and take in some deep breaths and allow yourself to find your center. Now, picture the room you're in. Every detail you can imagine. And above you, picture a small white light. Now, picture that light slowly moving down and around your body, covering you, cutting away all the energy and ties to things outside of you. All the darkness that's touching you, all the stress, the anxiety. Imagine it leaving your body as this light purifies you. It goes through your skin, into your vessels, into your bones. Absorb this energy and rest in it. Hold this as long as you need to feel all that darkness dissipate from your system. Make sure you breathe through this, deeply in and deeply out, and find your peace. Once you feel like you've come to center and that you've removed these negative energies, slowly bring yourself out of their reverie and back into your body and back into your day. For our journaling prompt today, how do I know when I'm feeling my own stress versus stress from others in the world? Take a minute to really reflect on this and evaluate. What is your stress? What are your emotions? And what are the emotions and stress of the collective? Thank you so much for joining us today. With love and gratitude. Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem.